What's up, YouTube? Here with episode 2 of Talk Boxing. Y'all see the title. Let's first get this topic out the way. The first topic on this episode is the 147-pound division, the welterweight division, and its future. And yeah, let's get it. Y'all know last week, Yordenis Ugas defeated the legend Manny Pacquiao to retain his WBA Super World Welterweight title. And Errol Spence, who was scheduled originally to take on Manny Pacquiao, from what I hear from multiple sources, he's recovering successfully from his detached retina and now is rumored to fight in a huge unification welterweight title fight with Yordenis Ugas. And mind you, when Errol Spence was originally supposed to get in there with Manny Pacquiao, they had the Ring Magazine title on the line. Not only will they have the WBA, WBC, and IBF welterweight title on the line, most likely the Ring Magazine welterweight title will be on the line as well when these two meet, probably sometime next year. I'm assuming it'll most likely be by springtime when Errol Spence will fully recover and should be ready to start training camp and be ready to step back in the competition. And that should be a big fight for the sport of boxing. Like I said, I was impressed with Ugas' performance. He was able to neutralize Manny Pacquiao in that fight. If y'all haven't seen my recap video for that fight, please go check it out. It's on my channel somewhere. I'll probably will put the link in the description or some bubble on the screen of the video. Y'all go check it out. I'll give y'all my post-fight thoughts and analysis on that. So I'm not gonna, talk too much or linger too much on that fight. And yeah, and then we have Terence Crawford, the WBO welterweight champion. Now I just watched and listened to him on the Teddy Atlas podcast show, and they were discussing his next potential fight. And from what I hear from multiple sources and media outlets is that him and Sean Porter and their respective sides are trying to come up with an agreement on the purse bid to that fight. And huge keynote, this is Terence Crawford's last fight with Top Rank on his contract. And Sean Porter is one of the main top-notch fighters in the welterweight division, and he's with Al Heyman. And this means if they're coming to the table together, Terence Crawford and Sean Porter, they're discussing to come up with an agreement to get in the ring, because WBO has made Sean Porter a mandatory challenger for Terence Crawford. That means Terence Crawford is working or is willing to work with Al Heyman and PBC to make the best available fights for him, because for the longest time, since he's conquered 135 and then 140 and now became a champion at 147, since he left those two weight classes that he's already conquered, and mind you, he was undisputed at one of them as well, one of the only 5 undisputed champions during the 4-belt era, Terence Crawford. He's been the WBO welterweight champion for some time now, and there's been talks about him trying to get the mega fight with a legend like Manny Pacquiao. That's slim to none now, especially since he lost his last fight against Ugas this past weekend. And Pacquiao's 42, about to be 43 years old, and Bob Arum and Top Rank couldn't secure that fight for him. The welterweight division is pretty much occupied by PBC, and all the top level competitors in the 147-pound weight class is with PBC in them, and Top Rank. And this is the down part of the sport of boxing, right? Every promoter likes to keep the fights and events in-house, and they don't want to work with other promoters to make the best matchups available for the sport. But now, since Terence Crawford, this is his last fight on his contract with Top Rank, I guess Bob Arum and them is trying their best to make the, best quality fights for Terence Crawford. And like I said, if Terence Crawford does fight Sean Porter sometime in October, like rumored, that'll be Bob Arum and Al Heyman working together. But this kind of, to me, in my head at least, seems like this is uh, Terence Crawford is en route in my mind to go sign and work with PBC sometime in the future to make that mega fight happen if he gets through Sean Porter successfully, which I believe he will, to make that mega fight happen with Errol Spence, and that's if Errol Spence gets through Yordanis Ugas in his next fight, which he's rumored to fight Ugas next in his next fight, and I believe Errol Spence will get the W in that fight as well. So that's the potential fight that Terence Crawford wants to go for, and Errol Spence wants to go for, because they need each other for that, legit stamp on their legacy to, cement their legacy as greats in the sport. They're already, top tier good talent. They're both in the top 10, if not top 5. And they are in my top 5 pound for pound rankings when it comes to the whole sport of boxing. So this fight, two undefeated champions in the same weight class, this fight kind of has to happen. This is like the post Mayweather Pacquiao era Mayweather Pacquiao, Spence and Crawford. Except, Pacquiao had, when that fight happened, he had already gotten knocked out by Marquez, and then, lost to Tim Bradley in a controversial decision, and then that fight happened. But, if they remain undefeated, and then by sometime late next year, after they get through, their respective opponents and their, next up and coming fights, they could possibly get in the ring and make that fight happen. And this is a good sign because Sean Porter, who signed the PBC, Terence Crawford, this is his last fight with Bob Arum and Top Rank. And even if he does re-sign with Top Rank, and it's still a good sign because even like I said, if he does sign with Top Rank, they've already worked with Al Heyman and PBC to have Terence Crawford fight Sean Porter. Hopefully they don't pull a bullshit move on us, and after having that one fight that the WBO, which is a title that Terence Crawford holds, their organization said, hey, you have to fight Sean Porter next, or else we're going to strip you of the title. And then after he retains the title, hypothetically speaking, the Top Rank might say, hey, we're going to have him fight, in-house instead of, fight Errol Spence. If Errol Spence beats Ugas, like, that would be some bullshit. But, yeah, I mean, this is how, the welterweight division is looking and how it's playing out. I like it. I like the future looks of it. And we'll just see what happens, man. And hopefully, they come to an agreement and that fight actually happens for October. Talking about Terence Crawford and Sean Porter. This by far Terence Crawford's toughest opponent. Sean Porter was Errol Spence's toughest competitor. It was a close fight with him and Errol Spence. And Terence Crawford, his biggest criticism from the critiques, the analysts, the experts of the sport, has been, he hasn't fought the best available opponents. He's fought only tomato cans. But if he fights Sean Porter, it clears up a lot of the questions in the air about Terence Crawford and his opponents, if they're legit or not. He's undefeated, but there's that question. Hey, he hasn't fought any legit opponents, but Sean Porter is as legit as it gets. Anyways, next topic. I'm going to cover this quickly. Y'all know Sunday coming up on pay-per-view, you have Tyron Woodley taking on Jake Paul. I'm going to give y'all my predictions for that little preview. From what I've seen, Tyron Woodley, he could strike, he could bang in there. He got a strong, straight right. But his speed ain't all there when he, throws his best punch. Dude's got a wrestling background. But he could strike. He's got some knockouts throughout his MMA career. He's got power in his hands. He could strike better than Ben Askren. Ben Askren is just a wrestler. That's his special background. He's never been strong when it came to striking. So Jake Paul had that advantage. I still picked Askren to win because, he done, took some beatings before, and he done, took some punches in the octagon or in the cage, whatever you want to call it, because I know he done fought in Bellator and all that before. But Tyron Woodley, he's knocked some dudes out, and he's also taken some big shots throughout his MMA career as well. But don't sleep on Jake Paul, man. Like, he could fuck up most people walking on the streets. Dude can box. He's got, decent fundamentals and decent footwork. He's got a mean straight right. And, yeah, he's got, a decent jab. But this is by far his toughest test to date. And me personally, listen, I'm a boxing fan first, but I'm also an MMA fan. There's not no hating shit, but I love the reaction from the MMA community when Jake Paul knocked out Ben Askren in one round. Oh, the fight is fixed. Wait. I just love that shit. Like the sad boy crying reactions from the MMA hardcore fans. If Tyron Woodley is knocked out by this YouTuber and is now by far the best, YouTube boxer out there, Jake Paul. If Jake Paul is able to knock out Tyron Woodley Sunday, which is what I'm like, I'm not hoping or wishing that, but it's like I just want that same kind of reaction. But yeah, I would say it's like a 60-40 kind of fight. I'm a favorite Tyron Woodley to, win this fight, but don't be surprised if Jake Paul catches him with a good shot. I don't think he's gonna, Ben Askren him. I thought the stoppage was kind of premature. Ben Askren, he had a hip replacement and he just walked in slow towards the referee. The referee kind of called a halt to the bout a little too early in that fight with the Askren Paul fight. But I don't think Tyron Woodley's gonna get, Nate Robinson or Ben Askren. I think, it's gonna go the distance. And, I think, if they don't rob Tyron Woodley of that fight, and he's working with Mayweather from what I've seen. I haven't been watching any of the build-ups or, the all accesses for this fight coming up. But from what I've seen on different boxing forums, I see Tyron Woodley, he's training under the Mayweathers, and, you can't get any more knowledgeable and soak in game when it comes to boxing. You can't get any better than, soaking in game from the Mayweathers. And yeah, I think Tyron Woodley should edge him out by decision. That's my predictions. Y'all let me know y'all predictions in the comment section. And yeah, but yeah, it's gonna be on Showtime. They're building up, big hype around this. Is Jake Paul has been, the Paul brothers, actually both of them has been one of the biggest acquisitions for Showtime, and this is his Showtime debut. I wouldn't be surprised if the judges rob Woodley, even though to most eyes Woodley might edge him out, but it's bullshit could be involved with the judges with this fight. Don't quote me on it. We'll just see what happens. All right, I'm gonna tap in just for the fuck of it. It ain't shit else happening. Benavidez was supposed to fight, but that fight got backed up all the way into November because Benavidez caught COVID, tested positive for it, so they had to delay that fight and back it into November. And speaking of COVID, Teofimo Lopez tested positive for COVID as well not too long ago, like in June when him and George Kambosos was originally scheduled to fight on Triller at the Dolphin Stadium in Miami, and it kept getting postponed and postponed. But y'all know Teofimo had just recently signed with Bob Arum Top Rank again. So after this fight with George Kambosos, it's actually happening October 5th on a Tuesday for whatever reason, which is kind of strange because usually boxing events happen on Saturdays and Fridays sometimes, but Tuesdays, that's very rare. It's going to be on Fight Club, Triller, and after that, Teofimo, since he signed with Top Rank, his next fights are going to be broadcasted with ESPN. And if he does get through George Kambosos, which should be a good fight, this was one of the big fights for 2021 that I was really looking forward to, and is still looking forward to. I'm excited for October 5th for them to get in the ring, and two undefeated fighters fighting for majority of the titles at 135 should be a good one. This is going to be Triller's only fight with Teofimo, and Teofimo is going to be heading to ESPN after, regardless of the fight. I'm going to say the prediction video for itself, because this is a fight that I want to give a full in-depth analysis and coverage of, preview and post-fight recap following the fight. I'm looking forward to it, man. Two undefeated fighters at lightweight, about the same size, and yeah, I know. Bob Arum and Top Rank signed Teofimo because they want their golden boy Vasily Lomachenko to get that rematch. But the main fight that I want to see, because I know Teofimo Lopez and his camp has been pushing for Teofimo to step up to 140. But before he does that, if he gets through George Kambosos and Lomachenko, which is what Top Rank wants, hopefully Top Rank in them reaches out to Eddie Hearns and them, who works with Devin Haney, to make that undisputed title fight happen, to see if Teofimo is legit that guy, which I believe at 135. I think, Teofimo should capture all the titles at lightweight and become truly undisputed before he steps up to 140, which I think is his natural weight because he is a big lightweight. Like I said, October 5th is officially been announced. They're actually following through with this fight. I know Triller was struggling, to make this fight happen, not only because Teofimo had tested positive for COVID, but I think, they were having ticket sale problems because, to sell out a whole football arena where the Dolphins and the Marlins play, when Teofimo doesn't, no disrespect, doesn't ring, pardon me, doesn't ring a bell to the casuals and the regular average citizens walking around that are, avid sports fans. Teofimo is a synonymous name, is a famous name. I think I used the wrong word. Let's just say famous name. I try to sound too fancy there. Bear with me, y'all. Is a famous name uh, amongst the boxing community after his win over Lomachenko. Um, and we discuss him as, rightfully so, as one of the top fighters in the sport currently. But like I said, to casuals and to average citizens, his name doesn't ring a bell like that. So you can't expect a whole football arena to be sold out just because you have a major title bout, at least 3 of the 4 titles on the line between two undefeated fighters, and because you have some rappers and singers enlisted for this event as well. Because Triller likes to do the thing. Y'all seen the fights with, the Legends League, with Roy Jones and Mike Tyson and the YouTubers and Jake Paul, Logan Paul, and them. And their fights, they had all the, rappers, R&B singers, comedians, celebrities. They think, because, they have a fusion event that, that's going to put butts in the seats. But, this is a actual legit title fight. You got to promote it like a real boxing event because, like I said, Teofimo Lopez is going to attract, hardcore boxing fans, people that are avid boxing fans in the boxing community, and those people that are, in like Vegas or, New York that are just coming through and, hey, it's a boxing event, whatever. And that's going to, have people, coming to watch a fight. And this fight is happening in Teofimo's hometown and in New York City at the theater in Madison Square Garden. So that's a good move. I don't know if this has, Top Rank involved in it. This fight is still going to air on Triller instead of ESPN. That being said, I don't know how much involvement is being made with Top Rank. I don't know the promotional part of it, but I'm just looking forward to the fight as a fan. And anyway, speaking of, fights being announced and made, let's talk about this big announcement. Speaking of Undisputed, is going down November 6th. Undisputed title bout for all the titles at super middleweight. This fight was originally supposed to happen next month on the 18th on Mexican Independence Day weekend. That's a big day for boxing in general. And, they couldn't come to an agreement. Saul Canelo Alvarez and Caleb Plant. That fight would have been big because, Mexican Independence Day weekend, that's when, ever since Mayweather retired, there's been a date slotted for Canelo, but they pushed that back to November 6th at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. That's when and where it will take place. November 6th, like I said. Yeah, for the original date, they couldn't come to an agreement as far as the numbers, but they finally came into agreement, and they're actually gonna have this fight happening. And you gotta give Canelo credit, man, because ever since he became champion at 154, a household name, he's fought the best quality opponents he can. Since 154, he fought Lara, he fought Trout, he fought Cotto, he fought, you know, uh, every and any name he can at super welterweight. Then at middleweight, he fought Triple G and Daniel Jacobs. Drew with Triple G in their first fight, which I thought, to be fair, Triple G won. And in the second fight, I thought Canelo won 7-5, and he beat Daniel Jacobs. And then he moved on to 168, and now holds a majority of the titles up there. Just beat Billy Joe Saunders, who was undefeated until that knockout that Canelo scored over him in May. And yeah, Canelo's gonna try and break another undefeated streak. Caleb Plant, he's not a household name, but this should make him a household name depending on how he performs. But he's gonna get recognition because he's fighting the top name in the sport, right? That's Canelo Alvarez, and it's just gonna bring him recognition regardless, win, lose, or draw. And Caleb Plant, he's undefeated, 21-0, 29 years old, good slick boxer. I am going to make a prediction preview analysis video for this fight, and it's gonna get its own segment because I don't want to give my prediction and preview for this fight in this talk boxing episode. I'm just here to give y'all that announcement, which y'all know by now, that by reading the titles and description. And if y'all watching this video, y'all the hardcore boxing fans, or is tapped into the sport some way. So y'all know that this fight was announced, and it's one of the better matchups of 2021. And 2021, man, has been one hell of a year for boxing. This is how you come back from a pandemic. This is how this is how you bounce back and say, there's been a good year for boxing. It's they've made the best matchups possible, and hopefully next year they do the same and keep it consistent. And I'm looking forward to it. Don't sleep on Caleb Plant, man. He's got that style, that slick boxer style, like Billy Joe, but I'll say a little more smoother. And we'll just see how this fight goes. Like I said, I'm gonna save the prediction for another video, but I'm looking forward to it. And gotta give Canelo his props, man. And I don't want to use the word fanboy as far as because that word is thrown around too loosely. I don't want to sound too much like a fanboy with Canelo, because I know it's criticism. Oh, from Triple G fans. Oh, saying, oh, there should have been a third fight between them. He ducking Triple G. I agree. It should have been a third fight between them two, but at this point, Triple G is only getting older and he's showing signs of slowness. I do not want to see that third fight at this point. And they say, oh, he's ducking Andrade. Andrade is probably the most ducked fighter in the sport of boxing. He's high risk, low reward. And to be fair to Canelo's point, to argue from his from his stance, pardon me, he hasn't fought anybody, and that's true. It might not be all his fault, but he hasn't fought any top quality opponents. And Charlo, this is, Caleb Plant is signed with PBC. He works with Al Heyman and them, and they're saying, oh, he should fight Jamal Charlo. And I don't want to cover this topic because it's stupid, but I might save that for a whole nother video. There's some controversy surrounding Charlo, the WBC middleweight champion. People are saying, oh, he's ducking him. Maybe Andrade should fight Jamal Charlo to unify the middleweight titles, the WBO and WBC, because they haven't really fought anybody, and they've been holding on to their one title for the longest time. And by far, if they fight each other, they will be the best opponents that they've on both of their resumes. And fight each other before y'all start calling out Canelo and shit like that. And people criticize Canelo for beating and knocking out a old past prime Sergey Kovalev. But you still got to give him credit because he's way too small for that division at 175. He still stepped up and still scored a knockout against a big man like Sergey Kovalev. Regardless of the fact that he's past his prime, that's not the best quality opponent that Canelo could have fought. It's not a better BF. It's not a Bivol. It's not even a Joe Smith or a Maxim Vlasov. It's not any of those guys. But he still went up there and scored a knockout. And another, like I said, I don't want to toot the horn, or sound like, a big Canelo fanboy. And like I said, watch that word. And he's gonna, if he does win against Caleb Plant come November the 6th and becomes undisputed super middleweight champion, not only does he become the sixth man to become undisputed in the four belt era, he will become the first ever Hispanic Latino undisputed champion in boxing history in the four belt era. He's making history. This is what you look for in a top dog in the sport. Period, point blank. Anyways, the next and last saga that I'm going to cover on episode 2 of Talk Boxing, Manny Pacquiao and his future. As y'all know, I said in the beginning of the video when I talked about the future of the welterweight division, Manny Pacquiao, who had to vacate the WBA Super World Welterweight title after he beat Keith Thurman in 2019, which was a upset, by the way, and that was like, oh, Pacquiao maybe ain't age, father age ain't get him, but this past weekend, it showed father age doesn't discriminate against nobody, including Manny Pacquiao. Dude is 42 years old. Man's about to turn 43 in December. And he talked about, after the fight that he had leg cramps in both of his legs and how his legs were injured. That's why he couldn't perform at his best throughout the fight. That's his excuses to why, he lost. But, not taking any credit away from Ugas, because, Manny Pacquiao is a very respectful, humble man. But, listen, man, he got beat. It is what it is, regardless of the leg cramps. All that's saying and all that's, showing is that, father age has gotten to the Pac-Man. You get what I'm saying? If your legs gonna cramp up, injuries are a part of the sport, young or old. But if you're older, this is a young man's sport. If you're older, you're more prone to injuries, and that just goes to show you maybe it's time for the Pac-Man to hang up the gloves and go be a family man and go work on whatever other ventures that you have outside of boxing. Be a politician, do great amongst your peoples. That's all I can suggest, because he's been talking about wanting a rematch with Ugas, and I don't think that's going to end well. I think it's going to be worse than, this past weekend's fight if they have a rematch. And I wouldn't suggest that if I were, by Manny's corner. I really wouldn't. And, yeah, he's done all he can for the sport and for the boxing fans, and he's gotten everything he can out of boxing. This was really, I think, to put on for the fans and to test himself. But your legs got injured. Ugas outboxed you. Was a better man that night. He fought a perfect game plan fight, and like I said, man, I think on to other things. You know, he did all he can for boxing. He's put on the most exciting, compelling fights for the 2010s. I think he was the fighter of that decade. And yeah, man, like I said, he ain't got nothing more to prove. And, it's time to move on to the next chapter. And that's what I say. And as far as, that leg injury and all that, allegedly, I wouldn't use that because that discredits Ugas's performance, regardless of the fact that it might have been true that Pacquiao did injure his legs earlier on in the fight. I could see it. Um, Even if that were the case, what he's alleging, and that's him having a leg injury. His footwork, has slowed down. He ain't been the same fighter, at least in my opinion, since the fourth Marquez fight. And definitely after the Mayweather fights, he's had some impressive wins, like the Keith Thurman fight, the Tim Bradley fights, the second and third fight. I thought Pacquiao won all three fights against Tim Bradley. And Lucas Matisse, impressive performance, and his only L's other than Mayweather and Marquez came from a controversial decision loss against Tim Bradley and Jeff Horn, which he also got pretty roughed up in both them fights. And his opponents did their thing. I'm talking about Tim Bradley and Jeff Horn. But Pacquiao deserved to win that fight. Those fights were somewhat a robbery, especially the Jeff Horn fight. But Pacquiao still hasn't been the same fighter, since that Marquez fight, and I'm gonna stick by that. And in that Ugas fight, like I said, go check out my recap video for that fight. I made a specific video for that. Y'all tap in if y'all will. And Ugas, like I said, he just fought a brilliant fight. And Pacquiao's footwork, his foot speed ain't the same. His hand speed is still there. It's still not as fast as a prime Manny Pacquiao, but he couldn't pivot and cut angles and utilize angles through the pivot and utilize his footwork to attack from different angles. Because Ugas, I think, was doing a good job at disrupting his flow and timing his offense and landing his punches on while Pacquiao is trying to attack and timing them perfectly and not giving Pacquiao any room to utilize his good footwork. You know, if what he's alleging, if he allegedly injured his legs, and that's what was messing him up as far as him not being able to utilize his footwork. It still is what it is. That just proves the point that he should retire, and I say that with all due respect. And I don't want to take any credit away from Ugas. Like I said, it's not a good thing to just throw shit out there and use excuses, because that takes away credit from your opponents. And Pacquiao gave Ugas the utmost respect and all his props after the fight. And even if it were true, like I said, Pacquiao should retire. He's gonna be more prone to injuries. He's only getting older. He pulled it off against Keith Thurman, but if he tries again with Ugas, I think the second fight's gonna end up worse than the first fight. And he doesn't want to get in there with top guys like Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, or even the Sean Porter. I'll say he doesn't want to get in there with those guys, because I think it would be uglier than what Ugas did to him this past weekend. And I don't want to see Pacquiao go down that Roy Jones Jr. route. And Roy Jones Jr. is my favorite fighter of all time. And that just shows you, I mean, no disrespect by that. And it was, I have the utmost respect for Roy Jones. I do not want to see Pacquiao towards the twilight of his career go through the same thing Roy Jones Jr. went through towards the end of his career. You get what I'm saying? That being said, let me know y'all thoughts in the comment section. Subscribe, rate, share if y'all will. And that's it for episode 2 for Talk Boxing. Y'all take it easy, stay safe, and peace.